where the system fails is, I mean, I've been locked up for 18 years, and I've still never had a chance to get the counseling for why I killed my mom and dad. I've had introspection, I've had journals upon journals, and I've come to a lot of answers. And I could go on the rest of my life and be healthy. But there's still things that how do I deal with me and my sisters? I mean, me and my sisters, we love each other, but we've never had a chance to sit down and talk about this.
How old were they when it happened?
19 and 21. And they were moved out, and they were just beginning one was just beginning a family of her own, and the other one had not had kids yet. Now she has 6 of them, and she's doing great. I mean, they're doing, I'm real proud of them. I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of my nieces. My nephew, he's 19, he just turned a year old when I got locked up. But I write to them, and it helps me to give them advice, to feel like, because if anybody can give advice about choices and the good ones and the bad ones, that's me. Because I've learned from bad choices where it takes you. And good choices is what I've been making since I've been in here, So.
It's extraordinary to me, as we've been talking, how you keep your mindset the way you keep it. You're very positive, you're obviously very articulate. You're not the face that people would expect if they were to hear about the crime. Do you recognize that? Do you?
Yeah, but I also recognize it as the goals that I've had in my mind. It hasn't been easy. I still have my ups and downs. There's still days, you wake up, you don't want to get up. Because I know when I get up, I got to go through the same old motions of hearing the same conversations or being locked up. Nobody wants to be locked up. I don't want to eat Aramark meals and spend my time in the cell. I want to play music. I want to write music, but I don't have a guitar. And if I try to get one, it's at rec time, and I don't get much rec because of where I work. So there's a lot of frustrations, but those are small things for now, and then you try to find other ways. But, like my focus is drive. I want to do something to make up or try to make up for what I've done. And I've got a lot of opinions, I've got a lot of ideas, and I can't give up because I have to try to get that out. I have to put that in some kind of form. I've got lots of pieces of paper I keep under my bed where I write things down, business ideas, lyrics, journal ideas, whatever. My mind's constantly going, and that's what keeps me focused. And that being, even though I have a messed up crime, my mom and dad were good people. We had a lot of problems in our home, but there were good things they passed along to me, and one of them was work ethic. So that's helped me, tremendously in here.
Can you even remember what it was like to be 14, to be 13? I told you that we're following so many of these kids, and a couple who are basically in the same position now that you were in 18 years ago. Can you even remember what it's like to be that age?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm as in what sense, though? Are you talking about it like in just
like
being...
a normal teenage life? You've lost so much of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember what it's like to be normal, running around, being a free kid?
Well, yeah. Things were kind of rough at 13 and 14, in my house. But I remember, at least as far as music-wise, that was everything to me at the time. Music, playing guitar, trying to learn, and at that time it was a dream. I wanted to do that for a living. And then things happen, and then it becomes, I start working on it and doing it more and more in here, writing songs and doing it for prison audiences and staff audiences and stuff. But yeah, 13 and 14, I remember the good things was music and girls, And it's still pretty much that way, but with a lot more, intellectual things going on and real life stuff,
What would you want people to know? One of the things I've said during this project is when a horrific crime happens and it's all over the newspapers, it's very easy for someone to read the report and go, what a monster, lock him up. We're trying to show that kids are still kids.
Yeah.
They might be behind bars, but there's still a child inside of this 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old. What would you want to tell the kids who are now in the position you were in 18 years ago, who are 15 years old looking at a 30-year sentence and they're in an adult prison? What would you want to say to them? Well,
it's no secret, like I said, that the system is broke. I'm not going to try to paint it where it's not, the truth. This system's broke. And for 15-year-old kids coming in that have 30 years to do, what I would tell them is what the guys told me when I came in, that some of the ones that seen I had some sense. get into school, set good goals. You know, I mean, stay away from the prison stuff. You know, if you're trying to, first of all, you're trying to get high, all that kind of crap. You know, if you're the peer pressure that a lot of kids go through, it's in here like crazy. You know, stay away from that stuff. Walk your own path. Decide what you want to do and find out what your interests are, and try your best to find, to keep that your focus. So you can make sure that you have to do 15 years in here. It's not a 15-year gap out of your life. It's almost like you spent 15 years in college. You know, you prepared for the next part of your life, and you had a time out that was actually valuable, and that's what, that's the only thing that can keep you on the right path in here. Because if you try to just, relax or try to, walk the prison life, which is just, recreation's great, but if that's all you're doing is just doing some kind of recreation and watching TV especially, TV is great too, but I mean, can destroy your motivation. Then what are you going to do when, after 15 years in here, when you've done nothing? You have nothing to talk about in a job interview. You had free education offered to you and you didn't take advantage of it. You'd be a fool. You'd be a fool for that.
3 of the kids that we followed this week transitioned out from the Wabash youth unit into adult general population. And I won't lie, they were very scared.
Understandable.
Do they have a reason to be scared, and what can they expect? What can you expect when suddenly you're a teenager and you're in with a population of adult prisoners?
In this day and age, especially where these prisons are made, the structure of these prisons are made where there's really not only blind spots. You can't get rid of all of them. But so what it is now has become more of a mind game. And older guys are going to try to play mind games. They're going to try to put the peer pressure on them. They're going to try to come at them in a way of like, we're buddies and we get cool, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, they throw those trying to use you. Users and abusers are all over this place. They do it to people on the street through the letters, And so that's what they're going to try to do. That's why you have to think for yourself. You have to decide, what it is that you want to be, and just be that. You can't, there's almost got to be hard-headed in a way, but you got to be savvy enough to try to find out who's the right thing and who's not. And really, like I said, everybody know it within yourself. You know what your interests are. If you just sit and think about it, then go for it. I mean, go for your interests. Don't let these guys in here try to pull, basically work for them, especially the gang thing. A lot of guys get in the gangs in here to try to be accepted, and they think it's a brotherhood, and I got your back, and you're obligated to a group. I've never been in a gang because I'm not going to be obligated to anybody else. Because that means if you want me to do something, I have to do it. And if I'm at a sentence modification, I'm in school, I got to go over here and beat this guy up just because you told me to. It means I jeopardize everything. So that's what, these guys coming out of the system, that's what they have to watch out for in the mind games. You got to think for yourself, and you can't let anybody deter you from what you're trying to do with the right thing.
I think for some of these kids, especially the young ones who are looking at longer sentences, right now they're really grappling with this psychological thing.
Yeah.
And they're young, they're new to the system, they're trying to tell themselves, I can do this, it's not that big of a deal, I'm going to make it. After a while, does that become hard? Do you really almost hit a wall at a certain point where you just don't know if you can do it anymore?
Yeah. I call it turnovers, I have one I think I've had one about every 5 years, where you get to the point and you're like, I can't take it. It's like then you start making deadlines. You're like, if this don't happen this year, then I'm just going to give up. And you feel, and I know everybody's pretty much been through it. The longer you do in here, and there's a cutoff point there too. I've known guys in here who've been locked up for 30 or 40 years, and they become so numb that while they are stress-free, their emotions are just, so they're numb, and that's a sad thing. See these guys, their spirit has almost been broken. But the turnover is, you get to that point where it feels like, everything you've done, you feel like you have to work your way out of here, but at the same time, why you're here, and you can only blame, you have to accept the responsibility. But the sentences that we throw out, 60 years, 100 years, I don't understand it. What would you expect me to do after, like I said, these guys are in for 30, 40 years. They're not a threat, but you done broke their spirit. If there's a crime, you have to pay for the crime. I understand that, but I mean, what do but then basically you're just got a shell walking around, so it's like that's, they said they're going to be life. I don't know. That's a sensitive issue. I got some, the death penalty. I do support the death penalty. I know not everybody does, but there are some pretty bad stuff out there. But the 30. I don't understand the 60 and the 100-year thing, because you're just putting guys in for so long that it's just you're leaving nothing. There's nothing left by the time they get out of here, if they get out.
Can you understand at all some of the? We followed such an array of kids. We followed some kids. Actually, the murder cases we followed, those kids had never been in trouble with the law.
Yeah.
They hadn't been in detention. They hadn't been in juvenile prison. It was, one night it happened for whatever reason, and now they're paying the price for it. We followed other kids who've been in the system since they were 7 years old, and it's become a way of life. Can you think of any answer when it comes to juveniles on what can we offer kids to give them hope at that age if they're really, really struggling? I mean, what is the answer when it comes to juvenile crime?
You talking about after they've committed a crime? Or?
Sure, after they've committed the crime. If a kid, you're a perfect example, you killed your parents, what is the answer to that? Because as a society, we ask for punishment. But what is it that people don't know about kids like you who wound up in a place like this? What do they don't know? They
probably don't know, or maybe don't want to talk about more than anything. They don't want to talk about what led them to do it. I'm the one who made the decision to do this, but it didn't happen overnight. And none of these kids, these kids either, if it's in the gang thing, it's doing that peer pressure, they can't think because they're not thinking, they're having someone else think for them, someone stronger thinking for them. So it's why did it happen, and focus on that. Because like I said, none of these kids they're not monsters. There may be bad people out there, and but most of them, especially the young ones, they don't even know why they do some of the stuff they do. And sometimes they think they know why, but after it happens and reality hits, and then they have to kind of come in here and think about it. We need to take it case by case and take them out of the prison system. That the prison system's not meant to examine psychologically what's going on in a person's head. It's meant to keep you from society and punish you. So we're throwing kids in here and say here and spend the next 30, 40 years, and maybe we roll the dice and hope that they won't be a problem when they come back out, if they ever make it. I've known plenty of them that are stuck on psychotropic drugs, or in the gangs, or can't stay out of segregation, because they're just messed up in the head now. They were having problems with their peers. Now they get in here, and there are no more peers, and some of the ones they are in the same boat they're in, and it's just they spiral, out of control. So what we need to do is examine what's going on with them, and you can only do that outside of this system, in a hospital kind of thing, a counseling kind of thing that we used to have 25 years ago. You used to hear a lot more about that. Like that place I mentioned earlier, Rebound. Rebound, as far as I know, don't even exist anymore. And that doesn't make any sense. Because in my case, I killed my mom and dad. I would think most people would think, why? Why? Why did you do that?
Did anybody ask that at the time? Was there any exploration of, okay, let's slow down here, he's a child, instead of rushing to a lot of judgment and throwing away the key, let's examine this. Did that happen at all? I just don't know the history of your case well enough.
Like I said, it happened after they ensured I was waived to the adult system, and unbeknownst to me and my family, I never had no record. I wasn't even a problem in school. And my family, none of as far as I know, I'm pretty much the only person in my family that's been locked up. Nobody had anything about, any clues. So once they ensured that, 24, 48 hours later, all options were done. But I didn't know that. I was going to RDC, Reception Diagnosis Center, at 15 years old, and where, all the options, I'm telling guys I'm not going to prison because my lawyer told me I'm not going to prison. And these guys are saying, you're in prison right now. They're trying to give me reality checks, and I'm trying to not listen to them. My lawyer told me, I'm not going to prison. He said, you'll go to a place where you'll get counseling around other kids your age, Well, you see a counselor there, and I tell him, and he doesn't laugh at me. He says, well, I'm going to be your ultimate reality check. We don't care if you're 8 years old or you're 80 years old, and that's exactly what he said. You have a double murder. You have 3 places to choose from: Wabash, Michigan City, or Pendleton. He said, and I said, I'm not trying to be mean, but this is where it's at, and this is what's happened, and this is the choices you've made. That's prison, and I finally accepted it, of course. But in our system, the options are like there are no options like that, you know. So for a 15-year-old, you know, coming into the system who's at this Wabash thing, or they're scared about coming out, it's almost like you know, you have to kind of just man up. You know, you really have to say, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to you know. And then the worst case scenario is I'm not going to let someone take stuff from me, you know, the prison stuff, you know. Then that stuff still happens, rape and all that kind of crap. But if you're going to be who you're going to be, and make no apologies for it about being square or whatever, or keeping to yourself, you'll make it. A person like that will make it. But it's in spite of the system. You know, it's like going to war. You know, people used to go to Vietnam. You know, they spend a 12 or 13-month tour over there. And I'm going from a book I read from a Vietnam veteran. He said, it could make a man out of you, but if you spent any longer than that, it'll make something else of you, negative. You know, but it's in spite of the environment. You know, that you'd have to. It's like, you know, you're just making the most of a bad situation.
When you started talking about you being at RDC at 15,
Yeah.
and you didn't know, really, you had no clue
No.
what was going on
No.
at the time, which helps put me in the mindset of the kids we've been following. Do you think they even realize at this point, take me back to when you were 15 and there's this swirl of confusion and emotion. Take me back to that time. What are they feeling? What's going through their head?
As far as like what, other inmates? Or
Yeah, the kids we're following right now who are now where you were 18 years ago. What are they going through?
Well, they're going through probably feeling extremely paranoid that a lot of guys are checking them out. You know, that's no lie. I mean, for me, I was 15 years old and baby-faced. And, you know, I mean, at the time, you know, you have the guys in for sex crimes that have molested, you know, guys my age, you know, and I'm doing time alongside them. I'm in the shower with them, you know.
Was that scary?
Yeah, well, it was scary for sure. It was the ultimate. You're tense all the time. You know, I felt tense, and I've never been to prison. Now I'm determined, and my dad gave me a certain kind of strength. I'm determined to survive. But you know, like I said, you know, you still feel like you're vulnerable because you're put in those situations. In the worst case scenario, what if I have to defend myself and do things I'm not supposed to do just to protect myself? How do I explain that to my family? Yeah, that's what's going through my mind. If I, God forbid, I had to actually do some really bad stuff to somebody just to keep them from doing it to me, how do I explain that to, because there is no self-defense in prison. I mean, once in a blue moon you might hear about someone getting that, but usually you participated, you're guilty. End of story, you know. But these kids, you know, the kids that are coming in, you know, it's rough. I feel sorry for them because, like I said, I'm at RDC. I'm the youngest kid in the history of the state at this time. That's why I was in Indianapolis Star, and there's no kid that had ever been waived at 14 at the time. It's happened several times since, like it's 12, you know. But, you know, and I get there and I get my hair cut, the first thing you do when you're there, and I tell the guy, you know, I had some guys try to tell me, don't tell them you're 15, tell them you're 17. I'm not a liar, and I just, first guy asked me, he was, you look kind of young, how old are you? I was, he was cutting my hair, I said, I'm 15. And he stopped me, he's like, what? You know, he stopped, put his stuff down. You know how quickly that spread throughout that prison? Yeah, I mean, people wanted to be my bunkie at that time for the wrong reasons, you know? It's ugly. It's ugly, it's a sick environment. It's prison, but that's what it is, it's a prison. It's where you put the people that are the undesirables, the people that can't function out there. But there's a lot of people in there that, in here, I don't know, that's another story, but, you know.
I'll just keep coming
Yeah.
back, I'll keep doing it. Do you think judges realize when they sentence a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old to adult prison, do you think they ultimately realize what that next life is going to be like for these kids? Or do you think they pretty much say, okay, this case done, next case? What would you want the judges to know about the consequences of their decisions?
No, that's a one. I don't want to, I feel like I'm assuming. And like I said, I mean, I've been locked up 18 years and I've never been out there as an adult. But I like to think that I got a pretty good understanding, at least of some of the flaws going on out there. And from what I can see looking out, is I see a lot of people that are busy, but not really busy. They're busy with all the distractions out there, their cell phones and the internet and all that kind of stuff. And I know there's good people, and I know there's good people in their jobs. There's good judges out there. But I think what a lot of people feel, they feel that they almost feel hopeless, like the system is just busted as it is, and it's almost like a roll of the dice. And they got to do their job. They're going to land a sentence down. They're going to hope that they've appeased the community, so for re-election to come around, and they're going to hope, maybe the good ones are going to hope that, if they see something within this kid, that he'll have some time to think and he'll come out productive. But it's a shot of the dice.
So many kids that we've talked to tell us, yeah, I signed some paper. I didn't really know what I was signing, and everybody was telling me something different, and so I just I took the plea agreement. Tell me about the issue of, at that age, not really having a clue of the legal work involved and what you're signing and not signing.
I had no clue. And the psychologist had told them that. They said, they found me guilty, I took a plea agreement, guilty but mentally ill. They had both sides, prosecutor and defense, had said I had suffered a mental illness during the commission that would make it unclear maybe between the right and wrong, kind of a wordplay there. Clearly that someone said, post-traumatic stress disorder, after the fact, or a lot of victimization, but they had said that I am intellectually 14, and then with mental, they said I seemed very receptive and very, conscious and very remorseful for what I did, but still so much going on up here, trying to, from different drug use or problems and stuff. So they didn't think I was capable of understanding it. I wasn't capable, and because it's the law, for one. And I don't know how much you've read into the law, but I mean, the smartest person in the world, the law is written almost in a dyslexic form to allow great lawyers from the bad lawyers to manipulate it. They write things, these long run-on sentences and this and that, and so it's hard to understand the law to begin with if you're the most intellectual person. Now, and I'm 14 years old, never been in trouble before, I'm trusting my lawyer, and
the lawyer told you to take a plea agreement, or he recommended you to take a plea agreement?
Yeah. And because they're saying, well, you can get 120 years. Now, I know my crime, I need to be punished for what I did, and I'm never gonna take that away. But it shouldn't have been just punishment, because it isn't like I just walked out into society and just took some random person. There's a reason this happened, and I'm not justifying it, but I'm saying there's an understanding behind this, that it's a family tragedy. It's something that happened within my family, and me and my family, it would have been nice if everyone has such a great opinion now, the community, well, you need to be locked up. Where were you before? Where were you, in school? I'm showing all the signs. Where were you then? So there's definitely but as understanding the law, no, I didn't understand it. I trusted my lawyer, and my lawyer just, my lawyer has given me some advice. He gave me advice for like the first 2 years after I got locked up, friendly advice. But he made some mistakes. Personally, I don't appreciate the lies. I know he wasn't that that naive to the system. I don't appreciate him lying and saying I wasn't going to prison. So
And I take it yours was a very high-profile case, which made it even.
Yeah, they got me out. I was out of the community within 11 months, so they didn't keep me long. Like I said, the prosecutor I got right now, he's the same one back then. I respect him, and I understand politics. I understand there is a such thing called politics. He does get publicly elected. If he's going to let me go, he's got to have some good reasons to defend that. And so I understand that. But he's done some pretty good. Like I said, when I was discussing modification, he has met me much further than what most prosecutors will, because they're hired to put you in, not basically let you go.
You bring up sentence modification, and those are two words that we've heard a lot over the past couple of weeks from the kids that we've been following.
Really?
And they place great hope on sentence modification. It comes out of their mouth every day. And I'm sure maybe part of that is wishful thinking, and another part of it is that psychologically that's helping them get
Hope.
through this.
Yeah, hope.
That little bit of hope. How likely is sentence modification when you're 15 and looking at, a murder case? How does that really work?
I would tell anybody the hard answer is buckle in for at least a decade, because nobody's going to consider you if you're going to do at least 10 years. And personally, if you've done a murder, even if it was, it would have to be really, like, say, you were in the process of getting beat and you've been beat down over and over and over again. That's a different story. But if you had calculated a murder, you had been victimized, okay, but you calculated a murder, you took it in your own hands. Personally, my opinion is you should do a good 10, because you need to get something. You need to get some things figured out. And you need to be punished, and it's like there's a lot of hurt feelings that happen with these cases. So I understand when people are out there and they're angry and they're hurt. The victims, I understand that. I don't know what they're going through necessarily, but I can understand them being hurt, and somebody needs to pay for that. But not just one person. You don't mean you throw this kid away either, because kids just don't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm going to kill somebody." Even if the ones that said that during the early times, just like I said some things in the early days that were lies. Because I was the same lies I was telling my friends, because I was lying to them trying to impress them. So it ain't like, when I got locked up at 14, I just turned that off and just decided, I was doing the same thing I was doing before I got locked up. I was 14. You were not grown up yet. So
what happens to your friends?
They're gone. And I would say, if I met any 15-year-old right now coming in and he still has friends, and that's because it's just happened. Give it a couple years, and I never made it to high school. I was in junior high. You're lucky to be friends with junior. We haven't actually had the cliques yet. So it was, the odds about my friends staying around were not in my corner. But when you have a crime like this, and I'm from a small town where murders don't happen, then let alone a 14-year-old kills his parents, there's a peer pressure to that. I'd heard the jokes, and there were jokes being made in the school, and at my expense, you going crazy, doing what I did, or what I can only imagine. So then, I would imagine some people that were my friends kind of want to pull away, because they had to deal with it. They were left on the world. They couldn't just. That's like my family. My family had to move away. Some of them did. They moved out of state because they didn't want to be. They didn't want to go through that, because people want to sit there and point the finger, and they shouldn't have to suffer for what I've done, So friends are, you're not gonna really have your friends, but it's probably in a lot of situations it's probably a good thing. It's a lot easier. At least it's a lot easier for a kid to start over than it was a person in their 20s that goes back to the same neighborhood and they're still there.
We had an adult offender at Wabash yesterday tell us that what you don't stop to think about when you're locked up is time goes on for the people who are on the outside, and eventually they just sort of forget about you on the inside, and they move on with their lives, and little by little the visits become less and less.
Yep, that would be true.
Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like in the beginning, lots of people are there, then throughout the middle, you're by yourself, and then as you get towards an out date, a lot of people come back. I've been in contact with several people that I was in contact when I first started. Then the 15, 17, whatever, 16 years in the middle, they're gone. And then I was getting the everything looked like a go for the modification, so you start wanting to contact people. And it's on both sides. It's like it's hard. For me, it's hard to have visits. It's hard to have. I want to see people, but it's hard to come up here and have to sit. You have to sit in the seat. You can't get up and go to the bathroom. To me, when I come to visit, it actually makes me feel more locked up, because I can't leave with them. I'm constantly being watched to make sure I'm not trying to do anything. Bring something in. All the strip searches. I'm going in and out. These aren't. All that kind of stuff. It's like I'm jumping through all these hoops, and it disrupts the regular rhythm of my day in here, which is. There is a rhythm to try to get by each day. You're going to get up, and I'm going to go to work, or I'm going to work out, or I'm going to do this, and that's how I function. And so, and it's the same in the street. I know it's hard for people to try to who writes letters? You know, who's writing letters? You know, I mean, here we actually have a thing called JPay, where we can actually email and type, which is great. It's new, I guess within the last 2 years, and you know, newer things that are coming in the system. But it's not instantaneous. It still has to be, you know, read. It still has to be screened before it comes and goes, and it don't work on the weekends. But still, I actually write more people through the JPay now than what I do in letters, because you know, who's writing letters these days? But it's hard for them out there to try to, you know, kind of come in here. There's two different worlds, you know. It's completely different. So I can't really fault people for not, you know, staying in contact, you know.
There were several of the kids that we've been with who've been at Wabash for 8 months or whatever, who've never had a single visit. They keep hoping or anticipating, well, they were supposed to come last week and they didn't, but I bet my mom will be here next week, or you know, I bet my dad will come see me, yet they get no visits at all. What's that like when you're young? I mean, as an adult, maybe you can handle it better, but when you're 14 or 15, even 16, 17, 18, human contact is very important. Yeah.
Well, they probably feel, you know, completely left out, you know, forgotten, I should say. And it definitely is worse at that age, because I mean, you're still, you know, when you're 16, 17, you're becoming a young man. You know, and I'm sure a lot of them want to be independent, but at the same time, you know, if they had any kind of family or friends, you know what I mean, they're in here, and there really are no probably close friends that they're trying to consider close friends. I mean, in here, more guys are just trying to victimize them. So you want that lifeline on the street, you know, and if they don't have it, then it's probably very lonely, you know.
When you say that, the other thing that's very crystallizing for me is that you're at that age, all the things you would normally experience on the outside, getting a driver's license, all those rites of passage as a teenager, you don't have that. You're locked up during all those sort of important moments that help you become an adult. What's that like to see all those moments sort of pass you by?
Well, when I was 17, it'd been a few years, and I still had a little bit of contact every once in a while with you know, with one or two of my friends. Usually it was girls. Girls were better at maintaining contact than guys, and it's probably still that way. But a younger sister of a friend of mine, I was actually more in contact with her, and I would talk to him. He was going through high school, and he was like, you know, it's great, it's great. That's what he kept on saying, it's great, you know. That was his phrase, you know, and he was getting his license. They were talking about driving, and it kills you. I wanted to hear it, you know, but at the same time, I'm thinking, you know, and I'm thinking, man, what am I missing? You know, I'm missing so much, you know. I mean, you watch the movie, it's got the high school things in it, and I'm like, I never had a chance to do none of that, you know. There's so much that I have missed out on, and so it's you know, to me, it made me feel, and still to this day, it makes me feel like I still look at people as being older than me, and I'm talking about guys in their 20s that are, you know, 25, that are just coming in the system. I still, and I'm 32 years old, and I still feel younger than them because I haven't done some of the simple things that are the rites of passage. I haven't done it. I took a different, I guess, a rites of passage in a way, you know, which not in the, you know, in the positive sense, because I have no other choice, but it makes me feel kind of, I guess, kind of, I don't know, different, you know.
Yeah, in your mind,
you know?
you're still a young man.
Yeah, you know, I mean, intellectually, I mean, I know I'm an adult, and I act like an adult and all that kind of stuff, but like I said, I still, you know, I've never had a driver's license. I've never held a real job. I was a taxpayer one time, but in a program at Wabash working a prison job, I paid taxes. And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world, and there guys have been paying taxes for years, so you'll get over that real quick. You know, and I was like, this is great, you know, because I feel normal, you know.
Are you concerned at all that when you get out, it's all going to be so foreign that it's going to almost be overwhelming?
It's going to be overwhelming. I know I get overwhelmed anyways, but I you know, I stay pretty controlled. You know, I'm aware of some of the things that, you know, your own personal things, but I don't fear it. I look forward to it. I look forward, you know, I'll take my time. You know, if you're familiar with the Leonard Skinner song, Simple Man, it's my motto. You know what I mean? The lyrics are just ingrained, and I constantly repeat that. So, you know, you just take your time, you know, and that's exactly what I'm not afraid to ask for help. if I got computer skills, thank God, now because of the job that I work, and I've learned how to type since I've been here, thanks to JPay. So like I said, you make the most of the situation if you're thinking about it. But I get out here, I'm on the gas station, or scratch that. I don't even want to. I'll take the bus system. I don't feel like paying the gas prices, But anyways, everything is, the cell phones, I'm sure, is going to be the weirdest thing for me, because it's like everyone's lightsaber or something. I got a cell phone. It's the everyday thing, So that wasn't happening before I got locked up, or '93. Hardly anything was happening back in '93, But I look forward to it. I mean, it doesn't intimidate me. I'm not going to be like, I don't have like this major ego to try to prove to you I know how to do it. If I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to do it.
So what do you go home to? If by some miracle, some magic wand came out and they said, you are out of here tomorrow, where do you go? Who do you go home to? What do you have left on the outside after so many years behind bars?
Well, I've got a great network of people, but that's because of me reaching out and trying to establish that. I got my uncle, my dad's brother lives down in Lexington, Kentucky. I've got friends that are very successful, educated people that already got me a few things. They're in my corner. I got other family down in Tennessee. I've got people. I've had several people say, if you had to live here, you're living here. And then, like I said, I still have a great program that would love to have me there. It's a real house of 16 people, co-ed. It's for ex-offenders, both male and female, and for college students. It was started from a college up there in South Bend, Indiana, dealing with trying to reintegrate you into the community. We're doing community projects here, counseling 24/7, which for the overwhelming part, I would like to have someone that, I got friends that are like counselors, but to actually have a counselor where that's what he or she does, it would be nice, because I know I'm going to have moments where it's going to be, the world is moving by so quick. And I got a friend of mine that did 26 years. He just got out 2 years ago. Now he's 60 years old, but he's done a great job through letters of kind of almost like paying it back to me, saying this is what I've been feeling. He said his greatest struggle was going anywhere by himself. He said, he'd be like, I'm in Walmart, and he goes, I feel like everyone's looking at me. Everyone knows I just came out of prison, and he's giving me advice. He said, you want to have people around you that are sensitive to that, or there to support you, so that they don't not going to sit there, man, grow up or whatever like that, not dismiss it, because that's some serious stuff. And he's gotten through it now. But he said once he learned that no one knew who he was, and therefore no one's even paying attention to him, and he's done great. He's got an apartment, he's got a job, he's in Elkhart, he's got a job and stuff, and
so you almost feel that's the term they use, becoming institutionalized.
Yeah.
Where you're so used to somebody telling you what to do, what time to do it, watching you, that the walls sort of close in on you, and then suddenly it's gone.
But for me, I'm used to it, but I think for myself, and I can make my own schedule. I just roll with the punches. I try to stay as stress-free as possible. I don't generally stress about the prison stuff, as far as when we got to eat, I got someone coming to my door to count me, and and all that kind of stuff, So I'm dealing with it because I have no choice but to deal with it. But I will not miss it, and I can set my own. Like I said, I got my own drum I'm marching to here. I can do it. So I look forward to that on the street. And like I said, I don't the institutionalized, and there are guys in here that don't do for themselves, and they're going to have it really rough. And a lot of them are the recidivistic ones that come back, because they're either they can't deal with, they got attitude problems, or they just don't have no confidence in themselves, or both.
Because your crime and some of the crimes that the kids we've been following are very similar, they're struggling emotionally with taking the responsibility. I know what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them say it almost verbatim the same way. I know what I did was wrong. I have to own up to it and take responsibility for it. Can you ever ultimately, internally rectify in your own mind what you did and why you did it? Or is it just something I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life?
Well, for me, it took 13 years for me to actually say, and it sounds a little cliche, and maybe to me it sounds cliche because I've heard it so much, but to actually say I forgive myself, it took me 13 years. And the reason I could intellectually understand why I did it and tell a story about why it happened, and I didn't know there's been people that have gone through worse. I know what I was thinking back then, I know what I was feeling, and I know I didn't want to do it, but I felt trapped. And no one was helping, even though I was asking and pleading for help, no one was helping. And it happened. But for 13 years, I couldn't get past what I did and feeling just so sorry about it, and then everybody that hurt in the process, what I took away from them. And so it's like I wanted to hold on to it to say, you deserve it. You deserve to be tormented and depressed and all that kind of. I was still doing good, but I wasn't at peace with myself. And it's still a struggle, even then, it's still a struggle. I have times, where I respond to something on the news, immediate reaction, this happens, a horrific crime. My first thought is, what happened? But then I'm like, that's what people think about me, and I don't. So that's why I try to understand. I don't blame you if you are afraid or leery. I had guys in prison that have been leery just because, you're 14, you kill your own parents, you must be crazy. I'm not going to mess with you, and I understand that. But dealing with myself, I know what I'm thinking, I know what I feel, and so I'm able to tell myself now that I have something to offer, that I like to think I have more to offer because I've been on both sides. I've seen what the worst state of mind can bring you as a human being, what can happen, and what the ripple effect it causes. I've seen it, I've felt it, I've been through it. So I'd like to think that I can actually, I have the insight to use it for good, to try to keep other people from doing that. And for kids, it's not about, I don't think it's like, there's scared straight programs out there that I think some, there's some productive for some people, but I also think there's other kids out there that, as you mentioned in your letter, they're not scared. And from one, because they're trying to prove themselves so much that they're going to say, I'm not going to be scared. What is the reality check is everything that your decision and how it affects the rest of your life, and everything that you lose in the process. Because all it takes is one thing, one peer pressure moment. You're out riding in a car, and you guys are going to rob somebody because you need money to get drugs. I'm reading a book called Inside the Mind of a Teen Killer, and it profiles lots of kids, And so a lot of these stories, where these kids were just out, they went to go rob somebody, not right, but they weren't going to kill anybody. In the moment, panic happens. And it happens so quickly, and the next thing you know, you're in for the rest of your life. You're over with, there's a sense of it's being over with. In a lot of states, they're getting life, where they're not going to get out. Even with life with parole, I don't know too many lifers, they get out because it's a political decision. Once again, no one wants to be responsible in case you decide to do something stupid when you get out. Whose head's on the chopping block? The parole board, So it's about choices, and I think that's what needs to appeal to kids more than anything is the choices that you make. It's extremely sensitive and crucial that you think for yourself and you do what you think is right and not what you think someone else wants you to do, that within yourself is wrong.
Because all these kids have told us, I never in a million years thought I'd be here.
Yeah.
Never thought that was
Because
possible.
who planned? Well, yeah.
They're shocked.
And then there's the kids that come from certain kind of neighborhoods, that it's almost, as you mentioned before, rites of passage, or a foregone conclusion. It's going to happen. It's almost like it's required. Or, it's like, make me a man, come into prison. But then they get here and it ruins them. There was a chance, and they come into prison and they get around their buddies or the guys that have been coming and going left and right. They have no goals. They're just existing, and they tell them the same drug stories and the same stupid stories they told on the first 2 or 3 bits, and they're on their 4th and 5th bits, And these kids get around that, and then it's just a person coming and going in the warehouse,
I think the other thing a lot of kids think is, I'm a juvenile, I'll never be waived to adult court.
Not in this day. I mean, as we're talking about 12-year-old, I mean, I hadn't heard of the 12-year-old in this state, but I'd seen the one convict, or being charged with the murder of his parents. And I mean, my thing is, I see us spiraling. I mean, how low are we going to take it? I mean, are we really this busy? Are we really this uncaring to say, well, he's 12 years old and he killed 2 people, give him life? You can't control what you're born into, and you can't control what's going on to you as a 12-year-old. And something happened to you. I don't care who you are talking to. Something happened to this 12-year-old kid to have him do that. Now, yeah, he should be punished. He should be punished, but helped. Taken away, I mean, if you kill 2 people, then obviously something's wrong, and you could be a threat to others or yourself. And so you need to be put into an environment where you have 24-hour-a-day counseling available to you, and to help get you to the point of success. And I don't think we have to hold them to 21. I'm not talking about the juvenile system. I'm not talking about the adult system. I'm talking about a place where the end of that sentence is kind of like, let's not even really talk about it. Let's just get this person right. If this person can be salvaged, let's just salvage one person, at least to say we've solved the problem, instead of just put it up in here and we're not solving nothing. We're just passing it along to another department. It makes no sense to me. And the only thing we're doing is weakening ourselves as a whole. Because if these guys do 20 or 30 or 40 years and get out, what are they going to be like?
Did your situation seems so unique because you actually now have reunited with some family of sorts that you hadn't seen in, 16, 17 years?
I had last seen... over the last 2 years, I've gone through a reunion. So we're talking from 93 to 2009. So 16 years, where I didn't even know where half of them were at.
You're talking sisters.
Not my sisters. My sisters have, even though there's been ups and downs. There's been years of silence, but an occasional letter, maybe once a year on a birthday or Christmas, and it's pretty much been understood that no matter what's going on, no matter what we're talking about, that we love each other and they want me out. They've made that clear. We've had arguments, we've had disagreements with what we all felt growing up. One experience, mom and dad this way, one experience in this way, and then me, obviously I did the worst because of my crime and what I took away from them. But one thing's clear, that there were problems in the family. We all can agree on that. But yeah,
they want you out.
Yeah, they want me out. They want me out bad.
And what about your mom's side of the family and your dad's side?
Well, there's only one person on my mom's side of the family, and that's the one that disagrees right now. And I feel if I could just have the one moment, like we're sitting right now, I feel like if I had that one moment, I'm not trying to sway her.
And who is she? That's your mom's?
It's my mom's sister, yeah. I'm not trying to sway her or manipulate. I just want to be able to, if she wants to yell at me, if she wants to I want to know. So.
You would have that conversation with her if she would.
Yeah.
Has she had any contact with you?
No, I haven't heard from her since, since I was officially arrested and interrogated, and that was the last time I seen her.
How was she then?
Quiet. I can only assume because we didn't really say anything. She was just kind of teary-eyed, shocked. It's the worst state of mind I've ever been in my life. Like I said, my world is spinning. I got the sounds of the crime. I've got, is it really happening? I've got her. I feel like she's there's a paranoia. She knows. I'm worried about what my family's going to think about me. I don't know what to think about myself. So I'm just trying to look at the floor mostly. And that was the last moment. So that's where she's pretty much just frozen me at that. And I'm not anything like that now. I haven't been anything like that even, since 93, because of the way I feel about what I did, and what I'm trying to do to make up for it. And I know there's people out there who be like, so what? You kind of like I waived my right because of where I took it, but it wasn't like when I did this that I had any kind of clue what was going to happen next. That's where I was, in my 14-year-old mind, I thought, in the way I did the crime, I thought that it was a way of making them disappear without feeling any pain. It's a long story, I don't want to really get into the details, but I thought that I would go live with my sister and that I would have a new life and I'd finally be free and actually experience happiness or something, you know?
So that's the mind of a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Mind of a 14-year-old is not thinking, oh my God, after this, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. That wasn't part of your thought process.
Even when I confessed to it, and everybody kept saying the same thing, you just need to get some help, you know, because I'm crying. Everybody said you need to get some help, you know. Even then, I'm thinking mental institution. I'm literally thinking that prison never entered my mind until I came to prison, because I was being told I wasn't going to prison. And then when I, you know, in the months in the county jail, guys are telling me you'll probably go to prison or whatever, and I'm telling my lawyer, you know, no, none of that stuff was there.
You're helping us to understand the mind of a teenager versus the mind of an adult.
Yeah.
Which we're trying to show kind of the difference between the two and ultimately where the two end up meeting in adult prison. I know I've taken a ton of your time and I could sit here and talk to you for 5 more hours, but I'm sure she's ready to kill me. If you had some final words to say to people who are watching this, who maybe by the end of this show are thinking, this is a little more gray than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed so black and white when I read about it in the newspaper. What would you want them ultimately to know about you and the kids who find themselves in these positions from your own words and your own perspective?
What I would want them to know, first of all, if they are thinking it's gray, then that's a good thing, because it is a gray area. And what I would really want them to know is there's a story behind it that no one, and people should know this. I mean, people, if they give any thought to it, at a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old, they don't just wake up and do this. Yes, you know, we need to talk about a punishment because it's a crime, it's a safety thing, but it should not be thrown away, because nobody at that age should ever be thrown away. I don't care what they did, you know, and it's like the school shootings. I mean, we've read about the school shootings, you know, we've seen it in the bully thing and stuff, and you've read the letter, you know, these journals that these kids write, I'm going to get revenge. Of course they feel that way. You know, of course they feel it. And in the world we live in now, there's a lot more violence being passed around, you know, through word of mouth or through TV and all that kind of stuff. So it's more relevant. All it takes is one person to kind of do it, and then it kind of just, the idea gets passed around. So it's more present, you know, but the same feelings are there. These kids are feeling the same thing they felt 30, 40 years ago. It's just the methods that are being used to deal with that is a lot worse, which to me is a reflection of what we're doing wrong as a society, thinking that everyone can pretty much fend for themselves. That's not what you do. You help each other. So these, you know, I'm hoping that people would watch this and say, you know, there's more to the story, and maybe, you know, I can as a teacher, I can maybe try to reach out more to the kids going on, you know, at my school, or as a parent especially, I can actually take an interest in my kid's life. You know, not with the, you know, just being strictly disciplined, but actually take an interest, ask them some questions, stay on them, you know, I mean, let them know that they can talk, that they'll help them, you know. I mean, I know kids push people away a lot, but, you know, if you constantly make it as a reminder and let them know you love them, that you're trying to be there for them and give them guidance, that can help. Because, you know, I didn't feel like I could talk to my parents. I couldn't talk to my parents, you know, and I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody else, because that's not the way we were raised. We were raised to keep within the family, and we're all happy and, you know, hide it and all that kind of stuff.
But
So
one thing I forgot to ask you, you're from a small town.
Yeah.
And two of the brothers that we're following were also from a very small town, and it was a very high-profile murder. How different is it being from a small town, and what does that really ultimately encompass, because it's such a tight community where everybody's paying attention? If you could just talk to me a little bit about the small town aspect of when something like this happens.
Well, I think the small town thing is like, small towns are still considered like almost like we all know each other and we all like that, and we're all in each other's business, and obviously that gets aggravating at times, but I guess that I kind of feel more of wanting to say that there's a challenge there, because people claim to be all each other's business, yet when there's problems going on in a family, and everybody knows about problems going on in this family, but it's none of my business now. make, you know, it's like, you know, people need to reach out more, but do it in a way where, you know, it's such a sensitive subject, because, you know, I mean, there's sometimes people overreact, you know, I mean, especially when parents they discipline their kids, you know, and then this how parents end up getting arrested or something because they, you know, I'm just trying to discipline my kid or whatever. But I think in a small town, people need to get together more than what they actually are, and, you know, like I said, it can't work the same, you know, when it's none of my business, but yet it is my business, you know, so it's definitely a lot worse in a small town, you know, as far as when these crimes happen, because then everyone feels like it's one of their own, you know. Yeah, that's how it felt. That's how it was in my town. You know, I had people on the news that, my town's small, but I mean, it's, you know, I had people in the news there, you know, saying, well, I think he didn't get enough time. You know, 60 years wasn't enough time, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But like I said before, you know, where were you before? And I'm not saying it sounds like a smart ass here. I'm saying really, seriously, where were you before? And why didn't you step in when you could? Because if you have strong opinions now, you should have had some opinions before when you see me, you know, doing what I was doing and pulling away and showing all the obvious signs. And I especially mean that for teachers that were at my school.
So you had what was your sentence ultimately?
I took a plea agreement for 30 years on count one murder and 30 years on count two murder to be served consecutively, one right after the other. And I've already served count one, and I've got 8 years left on the 30-year sentence on count two. 60 years. It was 60 due 30 as far as our credit class. Our earned credit time goes in this state. So as long as I stay out of trouble, then I'll have to do 30 years. And I've got, there's 4 years you can get for educational or program cuts that you can actually get off of 30. So I've got 3.5 years knocked off for that.
So you're looking at 8 more years.
8 more years, yeah, and 18 in, so about 26 years total, or 26 years total.
I know 8 years is still a long time, but are you starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel?
It's kind of like at this point.
Hold on one second. Sorry.
I'll get it.
I did too.
It's like at this point,
Okay.
I've been to college, bachelor's degree. I've done several programs. I don't meet the criteria. Unfortunately, I don't meet the criteria for a lot of vocational programs because I have 8 years. You got to get down to 4 years or under, 3 years or under, and sometimes there's some of them make exceptions, you know. But it's like my mindset is, it's basically I've done all the work and I've made it to a point where I am ready to go. And I'm not going anywhere. So now it's almost like maintenance. It's like I built the building. Now I'm not going to put nobody in it. I just have to keep it up for the next 8 years. A little disheartening, but if that's the way it's got to be, you don't think about 8 years from now. You think about today, tomorrow. And because I think about 8 years from now, I see myself at 40, and I'm like 14 to 40. You know, that's a big deal. But if you do it one day at a time, it don't just sneak up on you. You know, you try to find goals each, you know, to get yourself there. So, will I do it? If I have to do it, yeah. Do I want to do it? Of course not, you know. So, that's where I'm at mentally, you know, on it.
We should get that. And then again, that was a very good fight about, you know, you don't think about the age, but, you know, you take it day by day, because that was
Yeah, we got it.
too much noise.
Yeah, just that any part where so you have 8 more years to serve. How does that feel? Is it like, do you feel like you're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel?
In a way, I mean, it does, because, like I said, in 18 years, I mean, if you would have asked me a couple of years in if I would see myself here in 2011, I would have been like, I hope not. You know, 2011, I'm 32. First of all, my goal was made about age 20 to be out at age 30. No, I'm 32. I missed it. I almost got it. I was that close, and I'm still, like I said, you know, I still have my lawyer, I still have a modification, and I still have people that are trying to get me out of here, and you never know what's going to happen. I'm still working on trying to, you know, stay positive and hope that my aunt will have a change of heart, at least, maybe not for me, but for my uncle, who's, you know, same age as her, who wants me out of here. You know, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow, and we're trying to rebuild a family here, you know, maybe she don't want to do it for me, but at least do it for them. I want to see my nieces before they go off to college. I want to be influential in helping them make the right decision, you know, and you can do it so much more in person than what you can through a letter. So
So you're not really paying attention to the 8 years. How do you look at that 8 years and how you're going to get through the next 8 years if you have to?
If I have to do it, then like I said, it's going to have to be one day at a time. Like I said, I've gone, I mean, there's still a few things I can do. I mean, you can make the most of a situation. I can try to get into programs, and as I get closer to I get 4 years under, then I can try to get into a vocation and do that kind of stuff. But, like I said, 8 more years, it's not exactly my favorite thought in the world, when you have everything together. Even employment opportunities with the job that I got. I even got employment opportunities right now, and everything is there. There's a big grant I'm working at this job, and we have the second, I don't know if you're familiar with the Second Chance Act grant. We just got $750,000 given to our program 6 months ago. And whoever's being released within this first year has guaranteed money of about $8,000, $10,000 to go to them. That's a big deal, to go to your living expenses and to your job. And so everything is set for now. If it's 8 years from now, I don't know what's going to be available. Optimistically, I want to think that I'll still have a network, or maybe a greater network, or maybe greater opportunities. But that's a hope. I know that I'm ready to go now. But if it's in the design for me to 8 more years, and it's just one day at a time, and I look at it as maybe I'll do another year. Maybe I'll do 2 years and my aunt will come around. Maybe I do have to do 8 more years, and that's just the way the cards played for me. I don't know. But I know this, that there I have no other choice in the matter at all. I can't just ask them to let me go. Mr. Severe ain't gonna say, "Oh yeah, I'll let you go." You've been good. You're cool with me, or whatever. It ain't gonna happen. So when you're left with no choice, then you just have to do it. There is no, what choice do I have? Give up? It's not gonna happen. So.